Alaskans, wherever you are, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal week this week. Election day is just around the corner. It's very exciting. I just did my early voting a couple days ago. I'm sure other folks around the state have been doing that as well. Today, we have a very special guest today, a returning guest, somebody who our folks really enjoy hearing from, Speaker Tilton. Welcome back to the Must Read Alaska Show.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. It's really great to be here today. Little looks like snow out here, but you know what? That doesn't stop people from getting out to the polls. We got 5 days left, and it's been a great turnout, and just want to encourage people to keep going.
Yep, amen to that. Yeah, it's been snowing a little bit here on the Kenai Peninsula as well, man. My house has got dumped with wet snow a couple days ago, so I'm sure folks are getting used to what winter looks like for the next 6 months. I want to talk a little bit about your race. You're running unopposed, which I think is a great testament to folks saying they trust how you're doing, they like what you're doing. But still, talk to me a little bit about why you ran again and maybe what you hope to accomplish over the next couple of years.
Yeah, thanks. I started off running for office. Just I've always done a lot in my community and just really have a big heart for Alaska and for my community. And I'm a grandma now, and so I just want to make sure what the future has in store for my children and grandchildren. I want my grandchildren to be able to experience the Alaska that I experienced when I was being raised here. And so those are some of the big reasons. We've been involved locally here in local politics for a long time. I worked for the city of Wasilla for 10 years and then took a long time off to raise my family. But it's always been a part of my family to be involved. And so just moving into the state level was just something that I feel was more of a calling on my life. And I'm just really I'm really love Alaska. I really love the folks in my district, and is a lot of work to do still to get some of those conservative policies moved forward. So that's why I want to continue running.
Nice. So being the speaker is a very demanding job. It's one of the biggest jobs in the state. How is it? How have you enjoyed it? You've been at it for a little while now. Is it something you enjoy doing? You got to juggle kind of not only your district stuff, but being the leader in the House. I'm sure it's a lot to handle. Talk to me a little bit about how it's been so far.
Well, absolutely. I'm not going to say it's without its challenges. Of course, it has its challenges, but I do think that we have an amazing team, and the team is what makes the leader. Having a group of folks to work with that are all moving in the same direction really makes the job an easier job. We all have, as conservatives and Republicans, we are very independent-minded types of individuals, but when we all come together when we need to come together on an issue. And I think that that's really what made being the speaker and really something I can be proud of, because I just have to say that the group of people that you're working with are just incredible individuals.
That's awesome. So we have a big election coming up. Tell me about how important it is to you and folks in your district. We have obviously presidential candidates on there. We have congressional candidates. How are your folks in your district feeling about this election?
I believe that in my district, folks are feeling pretty strongly about it because I believe the turnout is pretty big. But here in the Mat-Su Valley, that's I'm really excited to see that because the primary, the numbers weren't very strong. And I just think that that's because we have this jungle primary and the ranked choice voting. And I just don't think people felt like, the jungle primary was more of a statewide poll, especially in my kind of area. There was only a few districts where, there was more than 4 candidates. So the turnout wasn't as high as I would have expected it to be during that. jungle primary, but I can already see that we are far surpassing even statistics from the last election. So pretty excited about that. And I think one of the reasons people are turning out is not just because it's a presidential election, it's a congressional election. You have your statewide candidates, but also we have these ballot measures on the ballot that are really important ballot measures, and one of them being to get rid of ranked choice voting. And I think that people in my district, that's a pretty common theme here, that people will be voting yes on ballot measure 2 to get rid of ranked choice voting.
Yeah, that seems to be how folks where I live on the Kenai Peninsula, they are not a big fan of ranked choice voting and they want to get rid of it. What about the other ballot measure? How are folks in your district or around the state as you're talking to them feeling about it?
Yeah, ballot measure 1 is a really interesting ballot measure. It is a little bit deceiving in the fact that it just talks in the beginning about increasing the minimum wage, and probably a lot of workers are already over superseding that amount, and employers are already paying more than what that minimum wage requirement is. The thing that is scary about that ballot measure is what comes behind that. There's some provisions for some banked sick leave, and there's a provision, I think the one that is the most concerning is about what an employer can say to an employee in a group meeting, and I think that's really something that I don't even think is totally defined, and so I don't think that it is really good for small business, and people in my area are not, will be voting no on one.
Yeah. What about this next year? What do you think some good things to focus on for the House and the Senate could be? Every year we seem to talk about the gas pipeline potential and permanent fund and those kinds of things. What do you think are some big hot ticket items that maybe the House and the Senate will be focusing on?
Sure. I think that we have already probably talked about everything that we're going to talk about again this year, because policy tends to be fairly cyclic, and we really do need to focus on the energy challenges and the high cost of energy here in Alaska. And what do we do to bring that high cost down, not just in South Central, but also in the whole entire state, because we want to bring economy to our state. We want to attract more business. So that is going to be a conversation that I think we will put even more focus on than we did last session. Last session, there were several energy bills, and there was a group of them that did make it all the way through, but some of them didn't. And I think that you will find that the House and the Senate both are interested in what we can do to bring that cost of energy down. The question will just be is, we can have this all want to talk about these high arching type of challenges. It's just when you get down to the details where we might have differences of opinion. So I see that as being a big discussion. I think education will be a big discussion topic. It's really crazy that last session we came out really strong with an education package. It's the first time in 6 years that, or 7 years, 6 or 7 years that there's been a strong education package brought forward. So, as we were in the majority, we wanted to really look at how can we transform education here in Alaska. Every child deserves a great education, and so, but how do we get that to them? I mean, out in the Mat-Su, we're blessed to have a lot of choice. And I think that that's really an important thing for Alaskans, to be able to have some choice in their education. And then, it's always going to be a discussion about what does the funding look like. But Alaskans really want to see some accountability for that funding, some results. We don't want to be 49th in the nation in our reading and test scores. Excited that the READS Act is being implemented across the state now, and we're going to see some results from that. I know we've seen results here in the Mat-Su. So I think that will be another discussion. I think it'll always be a discussion, but I would like to see us move towards being able to do things like charter schools easier. We fought the battle with homeschools. I went through the courts. I just personally would like to see a lot of choice for Alaskans. I know I have 3 boys, and all 3 of them learned different and had different needs. All of them great productive citizens now in the States. So I just feel really strongly about that and know that that will be something that we'll be talking about.
Nice. So what do you think is better for Alaska? I know what I think. A presidential victory for Trump or Kamala, and why?
Oh, you have to ask me that question. Oh, Jonathan, obviously President Trump. I'm a small business person myself, and it's not even just because of that. It's for every person. All across the nation, inflation has been an incredible, caused incredible disabilities for families. And I think when you can't go to the grocery store and leave without feeling like you might need to go get a loan to pay for your groceries, that's really sad. And so I think that just turning our nation around so that we can get back on track where people can afford their day-to-day bills, paying for their groceries, paying for, if they have a mortgage on their home or being able to afford a home. Young people want to be able to get out and get on their own, but you have to be able to afford a loan to get a home. And so hopefully interest rates will come down. I think that those are things that we could see under a Trump administration that we're not seeing right now. Also, there's just a lot of things going on, even though it may not seem like it here in Alaska, a lot of fentanyl is getting into Alaska. And I think a lot of that just has to do with some of the border policies and things like that. So we don't, we want our Alaska to be a safe Alaska. We want to say, don't even think about coming to Alaska if you're going to be drugs into our state. But we need a president and a nation that will help us with that too.
Nice. You got to have thick skin in this business. What kind of advice would you give folks to maybe don't know how to get involved in local politics, or maybe are a little fearful or scared because they don't want to have, be slandered and smeared? Sometimes I think folks on the other side do that on purpose so that good folks don't get involved. What kind of advice would you give for folks who maybe are on the fence on how to get involved locally in politics?
Well, first thing I want to say is don't let these last minute smear tactics, get to you. Go out and vote. There's a lot of last minute misinformation that's going around, and first off, just always check. Always check if something doesn't sound right. Check with the person, or just realize that that's right now there's a lot of that going on. How would I get involved? There are so many ways to get involved. Getting involved with your local women's clubs. They're great organizations. I mean, they're like kind of the backbone of making getting people elected and helping. Getting involved in your community councils. That doesn't sound like a really awesome, it doesn't sound like it's really an awesome thing to do, but it is, because the things that are going to happen closest to the people on the most local level. So being involved in your community council, being involved in your local women's clubs, being involved in, watching what's happening on your school board, your assembly, and then, maybe consider, doing something in the legislature. We are always looking for great staffers to help us out. And that's how I got started. I staffed for 4 years before I ran for office, and I'm really glad I did, because that made a huge difference in my abilities to move forward as a legislator, because I already had relationships built and I had understood the policy and procedures.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. We wish you nothing but success. It looks like you're going to pull off a victory running unopposed. You're always welcome back on anytime. But before we leave, do you have any last minute thoughts here before we head off?
Sure. I just want to say to all the candidates out there that I know that this is really tough. It's a tough time, but just know that we have 5 more days, and you and your families are always in my prayers and doing amazing things. And our state needs folks like you to get out there and to run for office, because we want to have an Alaska that we want to be able to hand down to our children and say, this is the great state that we live in, and I want you to have the same experiences that I had when I was a kid.
Nice. Well, Speaker of the House, Cathy Tilton, thank you so much for coming on the Must Read Alaska show. You're welcome back anytime. For folks that listen, watch, and read Must Read Alaska, if you want to help keep the lights on, just go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side, there's a little donate button. If you want to sponsor the Must Read Alaska show, just email me, John, JOHN, @mustreadalaska.com. And until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska.